Hello everyone, welcome back to LewisFiction and welcome to another episode of Spectacular Spider-Man Season 5. If you have not seen the rest of the season or the rest of the series so far, if this is your first time on the channel, make sure you go back and watch the rest of the episodes from Season 3 all the way to now to understand what is going on. But with that being said, welcome to the second to last episode of the entire series. Here is Episode 12. Episode 12, Turn Off the Light. We open up to a flashback of Peter and Aunt May from when Peter was a child. It's right after his parents had left him, and Aunt May turns the light off in his bedroom as he was about to go to sleep. However, Peter calls May back in and tells her to leave the lights on. May tells Peter that everything will be alright, he doesn't need to be scared of the dark. She tells him that one day he'll have to face his fear, and that he can't leave the light on for the rest of his life. Peter sulks, but agrees with her, knowing that she's right. She tells him to leave the light off tonight, and to tell her how he feels in the morning. Peter was scared, but knew she was right. All he has to do is face his fear. May turns the light off and tells Peter she loves him as she leaves the room. Against all odds, Peter perseveres and goes to sleep soundly. We open up in modern day. Peter is rough and restless. He hasn't slept, but he can't sleep because he's afraid. He's afraid of one man in particular, Norman Osborne. He's afraid of what his dreams might tell him. He's afraid of what the darkness may bring. He makes his way downstairs when he realizes, oh no, he's late. Since the last episode, Peter has applied for the job at Frontline with Robbie Robertson, and had actually scored an interview. He was meant to attend it this morning, but Peter's antics and nightmares of Norman Osborn's impending return have clouded his mind to the point where it's all he can think about. We get quite a comedic montage of Peter trying to look decent enough to get out the door in time. He smells his armpits in the process, and he reeks. He doesn't have time for a shower, however, so he tries to spray as much deodorant as possible on himself as he makes his way out the door. And as Peter tries to get to Frontline as quick as possible, this is when we cut to MJ, who is at Feast, working with Aunt May. May is showing MJ around the facilities, and once again appreciates MJ helping them. May takes the time to tell MJ that she owes her double time. She's not only working at Feast, which is helping ease the pressure off May, but she's also helping with the bills as well. MJ says it's okay. However, the scene turns very somber as MJ sits May down for a second, as MJ can clearly see how overwhelmed the job makes her. She asks her if she's okay, and May says she's fine. But that's not what MJ is alluding to. MJ asks after everything that happened with her aunt, Anna Watson, is she doing okay? May tries to hold back her tears to show her strength. She's usually the one looking after people, not people looking after her. May says these things happen. It happened to Ben, and one day it'll happen to her. But all she can do is live on. Carry on doing what's right. Carry on helping the people that she loves. MJ sheds a tear as well, as May returns the question. She asks MJ if she's doing okay. MJ says it's hard, but her and Peter have been helping her get through it, and she can't thank them enough for it. They hug it out, as the scene holds for a second. We cut back to Peter, who is swinging frantically through New York, trying to make it to the address of the Frontline HQ. He is trying to hold his phone, looking at the address whilst also swinging, similar to the scene from Spider-Man Far From Home. He makes it to Frontline about 5 minutes after his interview was meant to begin. We cut to Robbie Robertson, who is looking at his watch and wonders where he is. Peter enters the office as Robbie welcomes him with open arms, and Peter apologizes for being late. However, Robbie says that's never been his speciality. Robbie tells Peter that he liked what he did at the Bugle, but he wants something a little more. He wants to spin a positive note on Spider-Man. He wants to see a little bit more of the good that he does around the city, instead of just fighting the bad guys. He felt like Jonah always put a negative spin on everything Spider-Man did, but Robbie wants to do something a bit different. Robbie tells Peter there's a market for it, and he thinks that since he gave the best pictures of Spider-Man, he is the right man for the job. Robbie will look at Peter suspiciously, however, as if to allude to the fact that he knows something more. However, this is looked over as a passing moment as they shake hands as Robbie offers him a freelance job, and Peter says thank you. Robbie says he isn't contracted to anything because he understands that he's still at school, but he will be in touch for some further details of other non-related Spider-Man stuff that he'd also like to do with him as well. Peter thanks him again as he heads home. Peter thinks to himself that's the Bills situation covered. At least he's back as a photographer for the foreseeable future. That night, Peter is rolling around in his bed. He can't sleep. Flashes of the Green Goblin appear in his mind as he eventually screams out and sits up breathless. Then a knock at his door. Aunt May enters his room and sits down on the end of his bed. She asks him if he's okay, and Peter places his head in his hands. Peter looks over to the clock and notices it's 3 a.m. and tells Aunt May that she needs to go to bed. She says she can't because he has been keeping her up with his sleep talking all night. He asks if he woke MJ, and May says no. She asks him what has been going on. She doesn't like to pry his personal space, but this is too much. She's worried about him. She asks if it's anything to do with Uncle Ben. After all, it's only been a few years since it happened. Peter hesitates and says no, but then tracks back and says yes, kind of. He tells her he's had this reoccurring dream where something bad will happen to someone close to him, like it did to Uncle Ben. Most of the time he's had the dream about MJ. May places her hand on his and tells him no one is going anywhere. She asks Peter what is causing it. Peter says he doesn't know. Obviously he does, but he can't tell Aunt May that. He can't tell her that he's Spider-Man. Aunt May gets up and makes her way to the door. On the way out, she tells Peter whatever is causing it, whenever he figures that out, he has to confront it face on. He can't ignore it. Turn off the light and don't be afraid. Peter makes the connection to the lesson that Aunt May taught him when he was a kid and realizes that maybe instead of running from his problems, he should face them instead. Aunt May tells him good night and Peter thanks her as he goes back to sleep. So the next morning, Peter looks towards his closet, knowing his greatest battle awaits him, and running from it is delaying the inevitable. He slips his mask over his eyes and swings across New York City's morning skyline, elegantly, until he reaches the Osborne mansion, the place of much drama over the years. His heart beat out of his chest. He didn't know what to expect, but he had to make sure. He had to face this fear head on. He made his way through the top window and into Norman Osborn's office. Norman is stood, leaning over his desk, organizing it for the day, stood away from Spider-Man. However, Norman speaks first, as he felt the presence of the red and blue vigilante cross into his border. He says he's been expecting to see him. Spider-Man will say that it was about time that their paths crossed, as he leaps from the ceiling and makes a stamping entrance to the floor, trying to impose himself as much as possible. Norman chuckles as he stacks some paper. He will tell Spider-Man that he has no idea what he's gotten himself into, and Spider-Man will take a few steps forward, saying, "What's that?" And in one swift moment, Norman will shatter Peter's perception of reality with one sentence. "You knew this talk was coming, didn't you, Peter?" Spider-Man's eyes widen as he takes a few steps back. He looks around the room as if to wake up from another horrible dream, when Norman finally turns around to face him, a sinister look in his eye. Norman slowly makes his way forward, taking each step with such precision. Spider-Man will say he doesn't know what he means, nervously, and Norman will say, "You know exactly what I mean, Peter. I know who you are, and I know what you are. I want you to know that I've been on this quest, on this road for a long time. My plan foiled, my intentions crushed, and there was only one man to blame. Spider-Man. After my presumed death, I took time to go into hiding, to reevaluate and to rethink my strategies. If I wanted to continue my climb to the top, I had to remove the thing that was holding me back, the thing that stops me from achieving what I wanted. I tried various different methods. I tried getting people to do my dirty work for me," Norman will explain, as Peter gets flashes to the Sinister Six. Norman will continue by saying, "The more I relied on other people, the more I realized it made me weaker. And that's when I approached Professor Warren. If I were to kill you, I wanted to do it in the most effective way possible, like no one would even know that you were gone. So I came up with the insane idea for him to help clone you, so I could study you, learn what made you tick, to understand you in and out, to finally be able to take you out in one fell swoop. And after various tests, mishaps and failures, Professor Warren finally did it. But that's when I realized I had a bigger problem on my hands. Spider-Man wasn't another random New Yorker. He was you. Spider-Man was Peter Parker. And that's when I knew I had to see for myself," Norman will explain, as everything from earlier in the season with Professor Warren and the cloning of Peter all came together in Peter's mind, and for the audience. It all made sense. It was all connected this entire time. Peter will point his finger and raise his voice, saying, "So those attacks on the mansion, they were you?" Norman will look down, almost in regret, as he carries on talking. "Yes, but I didn't believe it when I found out your secret. I always had so much respect for you, and now there's no doubt in my mind why I did. But I had to make sure for myself. That is why I did what I did." Norman will sigh as he speaks up again. He will say, "I never wanted it to come to this, but you saved my son from himself. And I know a part of the reason why he went off the deep end was because of me, because I wasn't there for him. But you made sure he was safe. You brought him back, and for that, I will forever be in debt to you. And it's because of this that I will give you one chance and one chance only, Peter. Stay out of my way, or I will kill you and every single last person that you love. Got it?" says Norman, as at this point he is very close to Peter, almost towering over him. Peter doesn't know how to respond. Norman walks back over to his desk and grabs some things as he heads for the elevator. Peter, still stood in the same position, watches him all the way over. But before Norman leaves, he says one more thing. "Oh, I heard you got a new girlfriend. She's pretty," he will say as the elevator door closes and Norman is out of sight. The message behind the last phrase angered Peter. His fist clenched and his mouth quivered. This is it. This is his final battle, as we draw the episode to a close right there. Thank you for watching episode 12 of the Spectacular Spider-Man Season 5. One episode ago, baby. This is the last episode in the entire series. It's all been building to this. All 3 seasons on LewisFiction has been building to this. So make sure you don't miss it. Next Sunday is the final battle. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys all in the next one. Take care and peace.